Hello everyone and welcome back. Happy New Year. We're back for another fantasy season. And this season we are Fantasy Futures. So Fantasy Funhouse, that's last season. We're going to be changing it up season to season, keeping it fresh. Plus I feel like Futures sounds good because, we're predicting the future. It's kind of what we're all about here. And it also gives me more team names to work with. We were kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel with the circus carnival theme ones, but now we have plenty to choose from as we peer deep into the future. I was going to do a season review video last year, but I figured I could summarize what I wanted to say in this first new video for the season. So annoyingly, you can't see the previous season once a new one starts, but I finished number 7 on the celebrity leaderboard, which was okay, not great. We kind of wanted a top 5 minimum, that's what we were aiming for, but it was a pretty good bounce back after a terrible start to the season. I finished top 2 to 3% in the world, which again is okay, but we're really aiming for that top 1%. In fact, we were kind of aiming for top 100, in the world, so we could do a lot better. But the main thing I wanted to do in that video was to look at the winner of the overall league, which is Icon01, and see how he did it. So what did he do? I'll throw some stuff on the screen for you to look at, but basically, he always picked 2 players from the highest rank, or the favorite, team of the event. Checks out. If possible, he went a 2-2 split from the top 2 highest ranked team. If there was only one clear favorite, he went heavy on that team, and then either a light 2-2-1, or a spread of a true 1-1-1, depending on the teams and format. So, for instance, Blast Groups, which we've got coming up, you can do a true 1-1-1 pretty easily. Now, essentially, as the favorites won almost every event last season, he did well almost every event, which I'm not sure actually helps us a great deal, outside of encouraging us to take less risks, which, based on last season, is probably fair, but I just kind of hate having to play the same boring team as everybody else, I want to be able to do more interesting teams, so I hope we get more upsets. I hope we can bring some more interesting teams to the table, because I want to continue trying to think outside the box in my videos and try and show you different ways you can play it. But if you are playing at home and you want the most clear-cut, safest way to play, Icon's strategy is the most optimal. So we can maybe put some of those ideas into practice for the first event of the season, Blast Spring Groups. So it's a classic Blast format. We've got 4 groups of 4. The team that wins the group gets a round of padding, and the team that comes second goes into this play-in stage to play against the other teams that went second. And if you don't pick a team that ends up top 2 in your group, you get a round of negative padding, so something to consider. Going through the groups, Group A, Vitality are the clear favourites. They're going to smoke OG, who are looking really rough. I think for this Astralis team, they've got this Danish super team going on, but definitely needs more time to cook. Not been impressed by their recent results and how close some of their games have been, plus the ones they've lost. Falcons, same story, but with less Danes and with no officials yet. So despite the interest in what this team has for the Ends core, way too soon to be picking them. You could definitely make a case for Astralis, because I do think they come second in this group, but Vitality, easily number 1. Group B, FaZe. This is the most one-sided group. FaZe are going to trample Gamer Legion, who are still trying to work out their roles, find their footing. Didn't love what I saw from them at the end of last year. And then Spirit, who I was going to pick, I was super excited for, but no Dunk, no Magics, no win. Liquid, apparently only going to have 1 day of EU boot camp before this, and I still think they need some time. So, don't think it's happening here. The RMR results, had some good wins, lost to M80. I don't know, give them a bit of time before we start picking them in fantasy. So it's only FaZe that you should be picking from this group. Group C, this one's a little bit more interesting. G2 are the favourite, but it's G2, so who knows? That said, I feel like they should have had a deep run at the Blast World Finals, and I do feel like they're a team that should be topping this group most of the time, particularly against a very weak NIP. However, Na'Vi are interesting. Na'Vi should definitely beat Complexity, who are looking very shaky at the moment. And I feel like Na'Vi have a fair bit to prove with what this roster has together. And I do feel like they come second in this group at the worst case, but have a chance to maybe beat G2, because they've been playing officials. They're kind of hungry. They're warmed up. Group D is spicy though. VP, in theory, the favourite, but bigger this odd team that can sometimes upset. However, didn't love what I saw from them in recent online stuff. Heroic, however, this is a team that's actually quite good on paper. You got Nikodos, who's been farming at the tier 2 level. Nerds is now in the squad. Tessus is getting back to his kind of peak levels that he was in Heroic. I like what this team's got going on. Kixin, IGL, really rate him. However, I think I need to see them play at least one event before I have any confidence picking them in fantasy. However, Cloud9, they have been on the grind. This team's been together for, I think, 3 months now with Boomage as the IGL. They've had a really nice run through the qualifiers for the RMR. They're coming in hot and heavy, and I actually feel they could top this group. This 5 rifle playstyle that they have is particularly strong on the T side with Electronics aggression, and I feel like it plays counter to VP's very distinct passive play. They also beat them at Thunderpick with this roster, with Boomage IGLing, so I have confidence that Cloud9 tops this group, but I can see why a lot of people are backing VP. So I think it's one of those two. Heroic could do the Cinderella run here, but again, I think they need one more event. So as usual, I will be going through the different players that I think are interesting for the teams, and then I'll show you my draft. Starting off with Vitality, Apex, 202k. He's kind of pushed to the point now where he's kind of out of where I would reasonably pay for Apex, but his performance at the World Finals, you can see why he's there. Personally wouldn't. I think if you're picking into Vitality, you're not picking the Woo either for 239. You're probably looking at these 3. I think they're the ones to pick into. I think it's really difficult to double up on Vitality unless you go Flames and Mezzy, which is going to cost you. It's the number 1 team though. Personally, I'd probably just single dip into Vitality and go one of those 3 players, probably Flames or Spinks. I think Mezzy, despite a great performance at World Finals, Flames has got a bit of a higher high than he can reach, I believe, so don't sweat too much over it. I think just go whichever one you can afford, but those would be the players I'd dip into. FaZe, a lot easier to double up on because Karrigan is only 183k. And honestly, Karrigan's been playing really well in CS2. I think it kind of suits his aggressive, jumping around, wide swinging play style. So don't hate the Karrigan pick, particularly because they have a very easy run in their group. So he's maybe even a must pick for this event because of his price tag. Plus, you can pair him up with pretty much anyone on the team without spending a lot of money. I think Rops and Brokey are the only ones that will put you over that kind of 200k each price tag. But the fact that you can get Karrigan and Rops, and Rops could be the MVP of this event, you know, that's not bad. A lot cheaper than Zywoo. But yeah, Karrigan Rain, Karrigan Frozen, very common combo. Na'Vi, I think their pricing is pretty interesting because you got some players around that 200k price point. Alexi also pretty cheap, a little bit more expensive than Karrigan, but we know he's a bit more consistent. He's got a higher floor, I feel. You can pair him up with probably JL, just because JL has been the best kind of adapter to CS2. He's done pretty well this year as well in the qualifiers. And Wonderful is also pretty interesting at 217 because he's looking pretty darn good on this team. VP, Flit and Jamer I think are too expensive. Mia, has not been particularly great either. I think he's a bit inconsistent. But Norbert and Fame are the players to look at. Norbert in particular, for 203k, he's been one of their best performers in CS2. I think the way he's been playing, when he played at Atlanta, been really impressed by Norbert, so he's the guy I would pick from VP. Definitely wouldn't pick Nico. I think that he hasn't adapted to CS2 yet. Maybe he'll come into this event looking hot to trot, but he wasn't last year. I think I'm looking at Monacy. Monacy Hooksy, great combo. You can see that those prices just match up perfectly. Hooksy is obviously a bit of a liability, but he's so cheap that I can see a lot of people picking him. And if you're going to pick into G2, I would go that combo or Hooksy Hunter if you want to have money elsewhere. Next row to Void. I feel like just get Apex, even though they're the same price. I feel like Apex has got an easier run than Nexa. Complexity. Don't feel confident about them being top 2 in their group, and because of that, even though Elijah's been fantastic, he's too expensive, and the rest of the team, yeah, I just avoid them, sadly. Cloud9 though, I do think they top their group. Electronics may be a bit too much to invest in this team at 216. However, Hobbit, Perfecto, Boomage, Axile, all sub 200k. I would probably avoid Axile just because he's been so inconsistent, and I feel that Perfecto and Hobbit are going to get you more bang for your buck. Each of their performance lately has been really good. Plus, I think roles fit them better. So they're the 2 I would go here. But Boomage, honestly, at 191, he's one of the only players in that price range. He's been doing quite well lately, so wouldn't even disregard him. Falcons, again, we need to see them play an official. Despite 208k from Jis and Snappy being very cheap, we just don't know what this team's going to look like. Australis will smoke them, I think. maybe. Spirit, Baz. Who's this guy, man? He's so donk. I would have picked donk at 219. That would have been my draft, but without donk, this team is not happening. Big, good prices, particularly Crimbo. I also think Process and Sin, their price points are really good if you just need someone to fill that, but I just don't think they're worth drafting. I had them in my draft, but then I was like, oh, I just don't see Big coming top 2 in that group. So yeah, not happening. Gamer Legion, we ain't touching. Astralis though, it's down. Stown's the guy to go here. I think he's been performing quite well. Okay, don't look at that. Don't look at that. I feel like he's been performing well. Yeah, look, that's the last month. You got to make sure you put the right filters on. He's been performing really well. So at 208k, he's definitely interesting because I do think that Astralis comes second in their group. God, now I'm second guessing myself looking at these numbers. Those are crazy numbers. They lost. Yeah, anyway. NIP. Esatag. You might be tempted. 169k. Don't do it. OG. Don't do it. Liquid. Don't believe they're going to do it. They probably actually do come second in the group now with the Spirit thing going on, but their prices are just a bit too much for, what we haven't seen from this team yet. We need to see an event from them. And Heroic, it's the same story. Kixon, 189, Shush, 193, Tessus, 198. So tempting. But we need to see more from them before we pick them. I honestly think, though, Heroic Astralis, if you're looking for the 1% draft, you go 2 in on both of those. That's the way to do it. But for me, we're not starting the season that risky. So as I mentioned, double phase or double vitality is a must for this event. Personally, I think Apex is too expensive for me to feel good picking, which also means that double vitality is expensive if we don't want to get him, We're looking at a lot of money to get the next cheapest combo. So I'm going to be doubling up on phase. I think Karrigan is a must pick this event, as I mentioned, just with his form in CS2. The fact they've got the very easy run feels like I have to pick him. I'm going to be pairing up with Rain. This is the cheapest combo. My hope is here that they farm Gamer Legion, and I also won't regret spending too much, on, for example, Rops or Brokey, if they end up not being the kind of stars that we know them to be, Karrigan, Rain, not too much invested here, but still enough, and players that we know can pop off. Also frees up a lot of extra money that I wouldn't have otherwise, which means we can dip into Vitality without having to get Apex. Looking at Flames, looking at Mezzy, I think I made the case pretty well for why I prefer to go Flames, but definitely an argument to be made for either of them. And because it's the first event of the season, because everyone is trying to do this double phase, double vitality, boring triple IGL strategy, I don't want to do that. I'm not picking Apex. You're not going to make me pick Apex. So I'm taking a little bit of risk with my last 2 picks. I would have loved to have gone double VP, but they're costly. Can't quite do it. Na'Vi could do it. G2, there's definitely something to be made here. But a team that is underpriced and are 100% worth a single dip into, but I'm going to be double dipping, is Cloud9. And I'm going to be going Perfecto and Hobbit. Now, there is a variant of this team which swaps Rain for Frozen and Perfecto for Boomich. Boomich has been insane during the RMR qualifications, but his end of the year wasn't great, and I'm worried about him, throwing up those 0.5, 0.6 ratings. And I'm leaning a bit more here into the consistency of Hobbit and Rain, kind of versus the potential high of having Frozen in the team. So I might flip on this, but this feels a little bit safer without, breaking the bank. I'm avoiding Axile, as mentioned, a bit too inconsistent, and the roles are better for these two. So that's going to be the Cyberpunks. You can see role activation for these two is fantastic. I'm pretty confident in having 4 really strong riflers here. I feel like Cloud9 are a sleeper pick. I've still got the safety of phase and vitality without over-investing in them. So that's going to be my first team of the season. Let me know what yours is. As always, I really want to see it. I want to have that discussion in the comments. That's my favorite part about doing these videos, is seeing everything that you guys are doing, chatting about it with you, and we're going on this journey together as we gaze into the future. As always, best of luck.